So I see now that everybody is pretending to be some genius political global strategists and are now giving the Grenadian government advice all over Facebook and throughout the rest of the Grenadian media. Wow, you brilliant people. Well, the question is, where were you guys? Where were you guys when for months upon months, yours truly was advising that it is not wise to be antagonistic to the United States for several reasons, which I have reiterated on several programs. But no, to no avail. No one paid heed. And now you see all of these so-called intellectuals and all of these experienced political and military strategists are coming out of the woods. Some of them who actually, in the past, have been traitors to the revolution that they themselves pretend now to care so much about and are willing to rewrite history. There's a certain gentleman who has rode Grenada for decades for his own benefit and as an opportunist has used the unions in the past for self-edification. Now, that gentleman is parading all over Grenadian media as if he is some political, military, and global strategist and is giving Grenada advice on how to respond to the requests made by the United States. But I'll have you know, these are the same people who are allegedly responsible for the destruction of the revolution that they claim to love so much. Okay? If this gentleman was so bright and was such a military strategist and was such a global strategic thinker, the question is, why didn't he give advice months ago to the current administration so they could have avoided getting themselves in the situation in which they find themselves now? If you were so smart, why didn't he advise them then? But all of a sudden, he's stumping his chest and pretending that he's some big honcho, some big strategic thinker. Who you are trying to fool, sir? Who you trying to fool? And still, instead of giving proper advice, he gives and makes more antagonistic statement to pretend that he is some hardcore, fanatical socialist Marxist. But I am suspicious. I am very suspicious. Knowing your history, it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange how you always make an attempt to pretend or to showboat that you are the most hardline socialist Marxist. That, my friend, is extremely suspicious. And I wonder why you do it. Time, of course, will tell. Then you have what I call the sudden crew. A certain lieutenant colonel and two namesake individuals. I call them the sudden crew. Now, I've seen recently that one of the namesakes is on Facebook and wrote a big thesis and paper on her Facebook page as some big intellectual. Ooh, and it was labeled foreign policy, you know, as if to give some sort of advice to Grenada as to how to deal with the current situation. And she's drawing on experience in the past during the revolution. And I'm saying to myself, if this woman was so bright, the question is obvious. Why didn't she give all this advice prior to this situation? when myself was all over the media, okay, on several programs and some of my individual podcasts, warning extensively the Grenadian government that the path that they were proceeding on is particularly dangerous and can have major consequences. Where were these people? Where were these? And you know what's a funny thing? These people themselves, many of them, have had experience in these matters before, but they said nothing. A matter of fact, it is alleged that they would have egged on the administration on the wrong path. So now all of a sudden, they got so much things to say. You know, Bob Marley had a song like that. They got so much things to say. Yeah, all of a sudden, you guys are the geniuses. But it is said that it is no mark of brilliance to see the sun shining on a bright sunny day. And so too, it is no mark of brilliance to see something when it is apparent to the common herd. Okay? The true mark of brilliance is the ability to look at situations, assess, and come to the right conclusions and predict the possibilities that can happen. Okay? So don't pretend now, all of a sudden, that Grenada finds itself in a difficult situation, that you are some geniuses and you are properly placed to give some advice as to how to deal with this situation. Because you're not. You are pretentious, opportunistic bastards. That is what you are. I was going to hold my tongue on all of this. I said, you know what? I have said so much that I need not say anymore. I should just sit back right now. And if it was a laughing matter, I would have been sitting here laughing my ass off. But unfortunately, it is not a laughing matter. So I cannot afford to sit here with some popcorn in hand and probably a Coke. No, I can't. So when I looked at and see what these people were doing and pretending all of a sudden now that they're all so mighty geniuses, I was forced to say something. And I'm not going to say too many things about this because I said I would refrain from saying many things about the current situation, especially because I thoroughly warned over and over. Okay? And the inexperienced did not take heed. The people who call themselves young and bright did not take heed. So, you're playing man? Man up. Okay? And deal with it like real men. And as for you who pretend that you are some genius and some intellectual bajons, okay, and you want to give advice, this is one time I can mimic the attitude of Kem Jones. And I would say to you guys, boy, move there, no? Who's all you? Move there. While you're trying. Move there. So the bottom line is this. It is always easier to stay out of a bad situation than to get into a bad situation and try to get out of it. Okay? If you had foresight and true understanding of the global political dynamic, then you would have advised Grenada and Grenadians to stay the heck out of this high-stakes global political game, especially when you're amateurs at it. But it is said, ein Augiger, de wahre König, im de Lande blinden. Okay? One-eye man is truly king in blind man country. So, they have just confirmed all that I have said in the past on my personal YouTube channel and on several other platforms, that they would pretend to you, Grenadians, that they are such military, political, and global political dynamic geniuses, when in truth and in fact, they are anything but. I mean, you should have actually seen through all of this. I mean, look at the disaster that was the PRG government. Okay? So they are the ones who are part of it. And they utterly unraveled, destroyed it, and invited one of the most fierce global superpowers to invade them. That can be genius. Again, here we are. Here we are. You have a situation that in some respects, Grenada finds itself again in the middle of a rockstone dance. I warned you that fraternalizing with socialist Marxist remnants from the PRG would have led you down a very dangerous, precarious, and ultimately destructive path. So, here we are. You know, there's a saying, wenn du nicht hören kannst, wirst du fühlen. When you can't hear, you will feel.